Hey guys, welcome back to another adoption vlog. Now before we get into the content of this video, I just wanted to quickly pop on here and just kind of let you know what's going on with this video because it's a little bit different from most of our other ones. We actually filmed this video over a couple of months. We wanted to give you guys a real picture of what it is like to adopt from another country. So what you're about to see takes place over a couple of months as we finalize our paperwork and authentication and dossier to send to China. So I hope you guys enjoy following along with us. It's here, we got it today. Our immigration approval just came. Let's take a look. Yes, Homeland Security has approved us this approval. All right, I am so relieved because that immigration approval just came and we've been waiting over 4 months for that to come. So I think in the last adoption update we did was when we went to North Carolina and we had our appointment, and that was actually about 5 weeks ago. So under non-COVID circumstances, we would have had our approval weeks and weeks ago. And it's been a little stressful because when I would try to call or get online and look up my case and it wasn't giving us a status, so it was just very stressful. So I'm so relieved that it's here. And basically what this means for us now is this was the very last document that we needed to complete our dossier. So getting this approval saying that the federal government has approved us to adopt a child from China and bring them to the United States and make them an American citizen. That was the last thing that we needed. So now what we have to do is we need to get this document authenticated and then put it with all the other documents, and then completing our dossier means that we can actually send all of our paperwork to China, because China won't accept like a paper here and a document there. They want everything at the same time, and that's what makes up the dossier. So this video is probably actually going to be a couple weeks worth of footage because we're kind of going to take you along through getting this document authenticated and then completing our dossier. So it's an exciting time. We're excited to bring you guys along with us, especially if, you know, adoption something you'd be interested in. You can kind of get a little peek of what goes on.
It's a long process.
Yeah.
So yeah, moving the ball down the field, down the court.
I hate sports analogies.
So getting one step closer.
The next day.
All right, so it is the day after we received our immigration approval in the mail, but just because we received that document doesn't mean that it's actually ready to submit yet. When you are adopting from another country, you have to submit a dossier to the country that you're adopting from. You've probably heard us talk about the dossier, so I just want to explain what that is. A dossier is basically a collection of documents, and it's going to vary depending on what country you're adopting from, what has to be in that. But it's basically a collection of documents that tells your life story. It's like financial records, medical records, reference letters, employment letters, everything you can think of. Later in this video when we go to submit the dossier, I'll actually tell you everything that was part of our dossier just to give you an idea. But the reason I'm telling you all this is because every document that goes into a dossier has to go through what's called an authentication process. And the authentication process looks different depending on the country you're adopting from and the state that you live in. But for us, what we have to do, so I have the immigration approval letter. So we need to take it and get it notarized. Then after we get it notarized, we have to mail it to the Secretary of State in Virginia. We have to mail it to their office. They have to review the document and approve it, and then they staple like this letter with an official seal on it and mail it back to us. Then we mail the document to the U.S. State Department. The U.S. State Department has to review the document, approve it, then they staple a letter with an official seal to the top of it, then they send it back to us again, and then we have to send it to the Chinese embassy, and it goes through the same type of process where they review it, approve it, staple their seal of approval to it, and we have to do this for every single document. It's quite a lengthy, extensive process. So right now I'm going to take you along with me. I am working on filling out the paperwork so that way tomorrow when everything's open, we can go get our immigration letter notarized and then take it to FedEx so that we can send it to the Secretary of State's office. So luckily for sending to the Secretary of State, it's really easy. It's just one piece of paperwork that you have to fill out. So that's what I'm about to do right now. So we've got all of our documents. We are headed to UPS. We're going to get that document notarized. And while we're at UPS, we are also going to take some passport photos because when you submit your dossier, you have to submit a bunch of those like square passport photos of yourself. So we're going to go ahead and get that done while we're at UPS. Then we're going to go to FedEx and we are going to mail the document to the Secretary of Virginia's office. So that will be the first stage in the authentication process that we shared with you guys. And I know this video seems like a little choppy. It's like one day with a little bit, one day with a little bit, but that is truly the adoption process. There's so many videos and resources you can watch where they'll tell you about the adoption process, but we really wanted to show you guys. And I know probably one of the biggest misconceptions I had about the adoption process, because I'm very self-motivated and I thought, well, I'm just gonna sit down a couple nights, I'm gonna crank out all this paperwork and be done with it. And that's just not the way the adoption process works, because you're dependent upon so many other people. So it's like you do a little bit and then you're waiting for somebody else, and then you do a little bit and you're waiting for somebody else. So that's why this video is kind of broken up in this way, just to really give you guys insight into what the adoption process looks like. You have anything you want to add?
Nope, let's go do it.
Okay. We got our document notarized and we got passport pictures to mail in with our dossier. So now we're gonna head to FedEx and we're going to actually mail this notarized document to the Secretary of the State's office. And I know what you're thinking, you were just in UPS. Why didn't you mail it while you were in there? And the reason for that is every government office will only take documents and mail from certain services. So like when we mail to the Secretary of State's office, we have to use FedEx. When we mail to the State Department, we have to use USPS. It's very confusing, a little bit stressful, but that's why we didn't just mail while we were in there. That would have been the easiest thing, but with adoption, nothing is easy.
No, yeah, they got to make it a little difficult. Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't know about where you guys are, but from the experience from FedEx to our post office are two completely different things. So we're not too scared about going into FedEx. It's a really easy, simple process, but the post office, oh
we
my
dread
Lord.
The days that we have to go to the post office.
It takes forever.
It's slow, and the people in the post office, for some, like when you mail these documents, they have to be done in a very specific way, and you have to include like prepaid return envelopes with tracking on them so that they can send everything back to you. And the people at the post office, they just like, they don't understand, they don't want to work with us.
I would just say one of the biggest things we've learned is to be very, very clear, concise, and don't be afraid to say no, that's not right. You know, make sure that you are telling them exactly how it's to be done. because there's a lot riding on each of these documents. So you want to make sure they understand exactly what needs to be done. And, don't be afraid to tell them, no, that's not right. They need to do it this way. So we've done that a couple times.
Yeah, there have been times, like, especially when we were starting this process, like, people would say, no. Like, we would try to tell them, this is what our adoption agency tells us that we have to do. And they'd say, no, we're not going to do it that way. And we would just say, okay. And then we ended up having to go back and redo all that stuff. So,
wasted time and wasted money. So be clear, be aggressive and assertive. Make sure that they understand this is exactly how it needs to be done.
All right, let's go to FedEx. So that document is on the way to the Secretary of State's office. It usually takes us about a week, 5 to 7 days, I would say. They're really fast there. So we should have it back in about a week, and then we'll touch base with you guys and show you what happens next. Like we said, it's a lot of, like, you do a bunch of stuff really quick, and then you wait for other people. So in about a week, we'll do a bunch of stuff really quick, and then we'll wait more. So we'll see you guys when that document gets returned to us. Alright, so now that we've gotten that document back from the Secretary of State's office, I've got to get it ready to take to the post office so that we can mail it to the State Department. So right now I am getting all of the forms and applications together that we have to submit with that document to the State Department. Luckily, the State Department's pretty easy. It's only like 2 pages and they're not too picky about how it's done. So this isn't too bad. The part that I'm working on today that is a little bit hard is I also have to get everything ready to send to the embassy. So if you remember, we said every document has to go to the state that you live in, then the State Department, then the embassy. And since COVID's been going on, the Chinese embassy will not let you mail documents. You have to hand deliver all of them. And for us, that's just not practical because the embassy is several hours away. So we have been paying our adoption agency to hand deliver all of our documents to the embassy. So that means that in addition to getting all of my State Department documents ready, I also have to get all of my embassy documents ready too, so that way I can mail those to our adoption agency. Because basically what will happen is when I mail everything to the State Department, instead of including a return envelope for it to come back to me, the return envelope will send it to the adoption agency, and then the adoption agency will take it to the embassy. So I kind of have to do everything for both of those at once. And I know that all sounds really confusing. It is pretty confusing. Oh, and I'll address too, we do get some questions about cost associated with doing all of this. It's pretty inexpensive to have the documents authenticated at the state level and then the State Department level. It's about $8 to $10 per document for each of those, but it does get more expensive at the embassy. Usually we spend a couple $100 getting things through the embassy, but where it really starts to cost you is because you're overnighting all of these documents. The shipping costs are a lot. So just to mail those documents a couple of hours to the Capitol to get reviewed at the state a few days ago was about $60. So that's where it really starts to add up, is at FedEx and the post office. And whenever we're working on adoption stuff, Penny Lane is passed out in her bed. Bye, Penny Lane. to the post office with all of our stuff. Tip that we've learned if you're ever in this process and having to go to the post office often, go as soon as they open. That's when the lines tend to be the shortest.
Yeah, most of the time.
Yeah. All right, so wish us luck. We're gonna mail this stuff, well, one set of documents to the State Department and then one set of documents to our adoption agency, so that way when the State Department's done, they can send this document to the embassy. So wish us luck.
Later.
Okay, we did it.
It's over. And then
Don't have to worry about it anymore today. Luckily it went pretty well. So now what will happen is that, like we said, that document will go to the State Department, then they'll send it to our adoption agency, then our adoption agency will work on getting it to the embassy, and then the embassy will give it back to our adoption agency. So since this is the last document that we need to complete our dossier, our goal is to finish doing all the paperwork and submitting everything to our adoption agency that's going to go in that dossier that they don't already have. So that way, as soon as they get this document back from the embassy, they can go ahead and submit our dossier straight away. So that is the next plan. We'll kind of show you those next steps. We don't have too much to do. But yeah.
Yeah, we're getting closer.
All right, so it has been, I actually can't remember how long. It's been a few weeks since we mailed off that last document to the embassy. It has been approved, and now everything is ready to go to China. It's a huge day. So we are getting ready to head to FedEx right now, and we are going to be shipping our dossier. We actually send it to the adoption agency, and then they take care of getting it to China. So we're shipping it to the adoption agency right now. All right, so before we head to FedEx, I thought I had said earlier I would share a complete list of everything that's included in the dossier. So I'm just gonna go down the list of everything that's in our dossier real quick. So the first thing is an application letter, which is a letter we wrote to the Chinese government expressing our desire to adopt a child from their country. We needed Ben's birth certificate, my birth certificate, our marriage certificate. Ben had to have a letter from his employer, and since I'm self-employed, I had to have a letter written from our accountant verifying income for so many years. We had to complete a financial report that basically shows our income, our expenses, our assets, every financial aspect of our lives. Ben had to have a physical, TB test, and blood work, and I had to do all of the same. And then since I have some ongoing health problems, I also had to have a letter written from my doctor explaining those health problems, medications that I take, and surgeries that I've had. We each had to have state police background checks and FBI background checks done. The dossier also includes a copy of our completed home study report. We had to have 3 reference letters from people who are not family. Because I have ongoing health problems, I had to have a psychological evaluation and testing done. Luckily, Ben didn't have to do that since he does not have any health problems. We had to have our immigration approval from USCIS, copies of both of our passports, and then additional passport photos taken. And then the last thing we had to do was put together kind of like a little photo album, just a couple pages of family pictures, pictures of our home, pictures of our extended family, so they can get an idea of who we are and the family that we'll be bringing the child into. And then on top of all that, there's just several forms and things like that that you have to fill out. So that is everything that is in our dossier. Everything is on its way to China. I feel like a load of bricks has literally like been taken off of my chest. It just feels so good. So right now, everything's going to our adoption agency. They'll put this stuff with everything else they already have for us, send it to the embassy. The embassy will translate it into Mandarin. They'll process it, and then we will get an official confirmation from China that we are in their system waiting for a child. So I guess the next update we'll have will probably be in a couple weeks when we get that confirmation from them, but we will be celebrating the rest of today.
Yep, I'm already excited.
Yeah. All right, guys, so until next time, thanks for following along on our adoption journey. I also just want to pop on here and give you a quick update since we finished filming everything that you saw. Now, we've been releasing these a little bit out of order just because of how we filmed everything with this, but if you saw our Raleigh vlogs that we did a couple of weeks ago, we actually took a little weekend trip to Raleigh to celebrate our anniversary and to celebrate all of that paperwork and dossier arriving in China. So I'll link those videos below if you want to check them out. Now, since that paperwork arrived in China, they actually have finished translating it. The Chinese government has approved everything. They did not need additional information. So we are officially in their system as waiting parents, and we cannot be more excited. So thank you so much for following along on our adoption journey. If you have not already, make sure to subscribe to our channel. We'll be updating you guys here as we get more information and as things change. And I've also linked our GoFundMe page down in the description if you would like to help us bring our little girl home. So we'll see you guys later.